Hi, this is Thomas from Apex Game Tools. In this video we'll be looking at how you get started using Apex Path. So to show you that, we've created a small scene here. We have a ground to walk on, this square bit here. We have a unit in the scene, a small triangle, and then we have a single obstacle. Now these are just basic game objects. They have no Apex related components on them right now. But what we want to do, we actually want to be able to navigate our unit around the scene, and so to be able to do that we want to add the appropriate Apex components. The easiest way to do that is to use one of the quick starts. So you select your unit, you then select Add Component, you find Apex, you find the quick starts, navigation, and then you have a number of options here. Now the only options that will make sense in order to have our agent move around is the ones starting with navigating unit. So we have 4 of those, as you can see. Navigating unit, the first one here, is mainly for computer controlled units. This means that you can control units through script. The next one, where we have with selection, means that you can actually select your unit or units using an input device such as a mouse and then move them around the scene. And finally we have some navigation for patrols and wandering, which we will cover in another video. So we're going to go ahead and select the one with selection. Now as you can see, a few things happen when you do that. First of all, our agent will have some scripts attached to it. They will all be encapsulated in this one script called the component master. But as you can see, it has a number of sections, and when you expand these it will reveal additional components underneath. These are currently hidden in the inspector, but you can always select them to show them in the inspector, which will enable you to tweak the various settings of them. In this video we will not be going into the various components. We'll just be looking at how you get it up and running so that you can move around. So, moving on to the next thing that happened, we have something called the game world. This represents the game world in that it has the various components that are just once in the game world that we'll only have one instance of. For instance, it will by default have the grid. The grid is what is used to navigate the scene. It will typically cover the scene. Right now, as you can see, it doesn't actually cover the entire scene because it will always start out as a 10 by 10 grid. As you can also see, the grid is red. This is because right now it doesn't see the ground. So in order for it to see the ground, it needs to be set up with the correct layers. So the grid sees the world through layers. So it needs 3 layers defined. And it will define that by itself when you use one of the quick starts. And as you can see, when we open the layers in the Unity layer section, you can see we have had 3 layers added, one called static obstacles, one called terrain, and one called units. So these are the 3 ones that you will need. They do not have to be named this, so you can name them whatever you want. These are just the ones that are auto-created by Apex Path if they're not already there. So if you have your own layers that you would like to use, if you already have a terrain layer or multiple layers that represent terrain, then you can just use those instead. Now on the game world, we have the same setup. As you can see, we have a component master. And to look at the layer mappings, we'll just expand the component called layer mapping. And as you can see, the mapping has already been done. These 3 layers were created and they also have been mapped to the appropriate layers. So in case that you want to map your own layers, this is where you do that. But we still have a red grid, so it still means that it's not really seeing the world the way we want it to. And the reason for that is that we haven't actually added the various elements in the scene, the ground and the obstacle and so forth, to the appropriate layers. So we're just going to go ahead and do that now. So starting with the ground, we want to put that into the terrain layer. And then we have the obstacle. We want to put that into the obstacles layer. And finally we have the unit, which is already in the units layer. So that's actually all you need to do. So if we start our scene, We will now be able to select our unit and right click around the scene to move the unit around. If you select the game world, you will also be able to see a visualization of the grid. You can always use the grid visualizer to make it draw always, so that you can have both a visualization of the path of the unit and the grid at the same time if you so wish during development. So that's all there is to it. So just to recap, in order to get started using ABXPath, you simply add a single quick start to your unit, and then you map the layers if they have not already been mapped correctly. By default, if you don't have any layers, then it will already be set. So you'll just need to add the different elements in your scene to the correct layers. So that's it for this video. See you in the next one.